echo. That means we are live. So let's pause, everybody. Cool. And I need to do a little housekeeping. Hi, everybody. My name is John Skippy Limcool. Hands together, head bowed. Welcome. So we have a fun, interesting live stream planned out. It's been a busy week in synthesis development. Apparently, a whole bunch of new synthesizers and sound libraries that are worth looking at that I thought I would share. I want to do more of these types of things have shown up. So we're going to look at them because that's part of the stuff we can do here. Oh, my housekeeping. So I need to come over here and copy this. It is a rainy, springy day here in Portland. Let's see. Let me see chat real quick here. And on Facebook, I have this set so I can paste that. And of course, it's showing like, wow. Wow. It's got the text right. Okay, cool. They're getting better. It still doesn't show the right thumbnail graphics, but it takes a while for that to propagate, I guess. So let's see here. We have planned a handful of things. We're going to take a look at the new release of Waverazor, which now has an editor built into it. So you can get into some pretty deep level programming very, 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 very quickly. There's also the TR-909, which just came out from the Roland Cloud if you're a subscriber to their service, which is really nice. There's also this library from UVI. That's basically they went through and sampled all the patches and stuff out of the ESQ-1 and a whole lot of patches as well as additional stuff. So if you want really bright, 80s synth pop kind of stuff, this might be a good place to look. There's also an Easter present that was sent to me that is here. That is fun to play with. I will be showing that too. So a lot to cover. Plus some programming tips, some suggestions for how to use the OMG grooves in a music context. I also have, let's see here, over here. I didn't load this up yet. Mega Magic Viola is now in Omnisphere, multi-sampled, ready to be played and sounds amazing. So I'll be showing you that. We'll be talking about the demo patches. Today is the last day, by the way. Let's do our little plug real quick. At pluginguru.com, my website. Today is the last day to get the, let's see, log out so we don't see that. Today is the last day to get OMG drums on sale. After today, it will go back to its retail price of $49 instead of $40. It also comes with this Mega Magic Viola demo library that I'm showing right now for these really cool sounds. These are just single samples. And then you can use these to make patches to send to me for the full library. It's a chance for you guys to practice your programming chops that we cover in our videos here and the support that I do. So it's fun to give you guys a chance to be a part. We did this with Mega Magic Cello. It went really well. I'm probably going to have to update to version 2.4. So this will be a 2.4 library the more I think about it. So if you haven't upgraded to 2.4, you will need to do that to play this library. Just because so many people with this demo library are making patches that are using 2.4. And 2.4 is not patch compatible with 2.3. So if I made the library in 2.3, then 2.4 and everybody can use it. but I'm going to end up receiving hundreds of patches from people in 2.4 that I can't load. So that's a problem. So I think the only solution is for us to make this a 2.4 library. So that is kind of the plan at the moment. So we'll talk more about that. I'm okay. You can, okay. So just so you guys know, the chat is recorded and played back in the future when people watch this video. So please be responsible. Say things that you want other people to read about what you said in the future. And let's start with this. I want to start with showing the first looks. So Waverazor is near and dear to my heart. Tai-Ho, part of the main team, he's the voicing guy and kind of like co-owner of Mock Media Overkill. I've worked with him at Alesis in the past on projects. We did the DM Pro drum module. We did some other stuff together along the way back in the history books. They've had Waverazor out for over a year. They showed it a year ago at the NAMM show. And then it's come a year, and now they've finally got, it took them a while to wrap their head around how to do this complex interface for dealing with this instrument. It's a very powerful, capable, unique sounding synth. There's more patches now, so that's one patch. And I will say this, I have gotten this update, I have worked with this, I understand some of the basics. I don't understand everything. And so I think in the future I'll have Tai-Ho come on and do a Waverazor like master programming class. Because they can go some crazy places sonically, and to be able to choose the different waveform segments by clicking here. And then changing them. I know how to change them in the editor. I'm not sure. Or you can choose the different waveform types here. Let's make that noise too. So the noise randomizes. So, so now there's this little control button right here, which will take you into the editor. And as you can see, here's like a flow chart above of the controls, the mods. There's 3 oscillators, and you click each one of these to see what they are doing, going into 3 possible filters. And you can click here to see whether they're used. For the most part, I'm finding that there's only 1 filter being used currently. Into the amp mixer, there's 3 different effects. And the effects can range from delays, flangers, filters, bit offsets, no reverb. I know that they wanted to add a reverb. They haven't added that yet. That will be coming in the future, the outputs. So if we go to oscillator 1, you can click here for the overall stuff, and then here's for each of the possible segments, depending on how many segments this is divided into, and the more steps that it's added into, the more you can change what is happening sonically. The way Waverazor works, it takes waveforms and it chops them granularly into pieces, so it's able to do modulation to segments of a waveform. So it makes some truly unique sounds. This interface, there's a lot of terminology here that is new and unique as far as to what things are going into. So we'll have Tai-Ho come along and explain some of this insanity to us, because there's not graphic envelopes. It's over here you have your attack, your decay time, release time, and then your levels are down here for your envelopes. So they look like this. It's editable and it makes more sense, but I think they will probably refine this more over time. But it's fully editable now, so you can go in. a very unique sound. It's a really cool. Okay. So let's see what the chat is talking about. There's a remember to yeah, on the update to 2.4 for Omnisphere, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's a update to the patch library as well as the actual update itself. So you want to make sure that you update all, check to make sure all the components are updated. So that's Waverazor. I really highly recommend this if you need unique sounds and you want to be in for the long run developmental, if you start communicating with their team, they reply back and they will converse with you and share knowledge. If you have suggestions, they will consider them for adding to this synthesizer. So it's that type of a relationship, which I think is really special. So I highly endorse these guys and think this is a very nice update to see the work put in to turn this. I mean, it's complex. You can have literally an unlimited number of LFOs, of envelopes. There's no limits. The way that it's designed, it truly can just kind of keep expanding and growing. You can have multiple LFOs changing each of these segments of the waveform. So it has some pretty serious capabilities that haven't even been tapped into, I don't think, yet. Yeah. Okay. So that's Waverazor. There's a library that a lot of you have contacted. I wasn't going to cover this, but people have been sending, say, like, you're doing a live stream. Can you show this? And it's a $49 library from UVI. It's available for Falcon. If you don't have Falcon, you can use also, they have a thing kind of like the Contact 6 free player kind of a concept called the UVI Workstation. And you can double click here and go to sound banks and I'd have to, let me navigate over to where this is at. Falcon here. So by now it's inside the workstation. So you can see it here or you can see it in Falcon. The difference being that this has the info is where they have this editor interface built in. If you get to hit edit, you can get into seeing all the parameters and stuff that go into this pretty complex synthesizer that they've set up interface wise. But the free player is something you can download for free, and then the library will play there if you don't have Falcon. And so and what this is if we go like this is basically where you can click right here, and they basically sampled, I think most of these are patches. I think if you get to waveforms, here you have the basic, the 32 waveforms that came inside of an ESQ-1 when you bought that synthesizer in the 80s. There's always this noise while it's loading the sound, which is irritating. You have to wait for it to finish loading. Okay. One thing that I had as a slight complaint is if you get, well here, this is the workstation, so if you get to the edit page, you can transpose it down 1 octave. But you can't transpose it any lower than that. And there's times where I've wanted it to go down. Oh, you could do it here. Okay. And I think you can double click and put in a value. I didn't notice the semitones was 2 octaves. Okay, so I don't complain anymore about that. So you have the waveforms, and then all of this up here is basically synth patches. So these are... And then you can have 2 of these patches or waveforms layered. You have the ability to switch between them for changing the basics of the envelope and the filter, which has an envelope generator with just ADSRs. You have over here the ability to choose between these two as far as to their pitch settings and whether they're mono. There's arpeggiators. There's these effects, a phasor. I don't know why they call it a Taurus, but that's what they call it. And then right here, you can click to go through presets. So if you call up these guys, this is a... And it's kind of confusing. I don't like interfaces, just so you know, if you ever work on an interface with me, I don't like interfaces where you see things that look like buttons here that don't do anything, and above here are the buttons that do something. That always confuses me. And there's definitely some sort of a memory leak. When I change patches, it messes up the audio of my computer, which is kind of irritating. So if you need kind of the M83, it's a $79 library usually. I guess when it's done, its introductory just came out, but it's $49 now. So if you go to the, I think it's UVI, just go UVI space Falcon in Google, and it will take you to their page so you can see this. It's nice. It's got a lot of nice, really bright, here's animated steps, so we can... So it has a lot of stuff like this. Okay. Okay. What is the chat talking about? Let's come over here and see. My second synth purchase from way back in 1986. Yeah, Coxa, I will talk about that. Not right now. So I think this is a nice library. If you need these types of sounds, it's a good place to check out. Okay. Next up is from Roland. If you're a subscriber to the Roland Cloud, they've just released the TR-909 to complement the TR-808 that came out a couple weeks ago. You can hit start. Sounds like a TR-909. You've got the same controls. You can actually set up all the settings and save them. And they have these kit presets so you can have these drive kits, different presets. Right? If you want, you can hit the edit button and it will pop open to where you see what's going on. So you can change it around. You can add flams. There's a whole bunch of different types of flams you can add. So we go to the hi-hats. So you can do flams if you want on certain notes to get, they've got some that actually are kind of. See, slow it down a little bit. Okay, so it is what it is. What's nice is down on the keyboard, you can play the sound, so you can also trigger and sequence your own patterns. if you do that, just so you know, I had an issue where you're trying to use your sequencer and all of a sudden, each time you hit play, it starts playing the patterns. So you need to go, and it doesn't seem to save this, but if you go to the, where is the, there is a place of preference, options right here. You can turn off position lock to DAW. Turn that off, and now it doesn't start and stop when you play your sequencer, which is helpful if you don't want it to play the patterns in here. Or you can say turn it on. They also have the ability to zoom the interface, change the panel so you see the additional gains. There's 2 pages of that kind of stuff. They have help, which will pop up a web page, PDF stuff to read about. So you can turn that on. You can make it bigger if you want to see it more clear in the interface. So there you go. It's nice. It sounds just... The low seems to stay in tune. This changing like this actually tune should be like pitchy G intensity. And just so you know, another alternative to this, if you're looking for something fun for creating things, this is a very favorite secret weapon of mine, and this is Kick 2. And what it does, it allows you to make kick drums, and you have incredible control and the attack, and you can have 3 attacks. And what's really cool is you go over here to the render page and you hit generate, and now you click and drag, and it's made a wave file of that kick drum that you can now play. You can load into your DAW from anywhere. So this is one of my secret weapons that I use in production because it's so nice. So be aware, if you need more control over like 909 type kicks, and it's like this has limited controls, right? It's trying to be legit to the original thing. So you can't get extreme and go all out and crazy and stuff like that with these sounds. I wish they would have had like a little like a plus button that would boost everything by some amount so you could like make more than the original. But for these, they are trying to be true to a TR-909. So it does sounds basically with like what so you guys are talking about Omnisphere updates. We'll talk about that in a minute. I want to make sure I finish my first looks and do this right. If I'm jumping, I'm very easily, naturally jumping all over the place with you guys. So I think this is a nice option if you subscribe to the cloud. It does require a monthly subscription. Some people don't like that. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but for this, because there are so many different plugins in the Roland universe, from the D50 and Jupiter 8, both the TR-8 and 909, it's getting to be where it's definitely more worthwhile and more of a reason to look at it. So highly recommended. Now we'll talk about OMG drums in a second. There's lots of talk going on in the chat about Omnisphere 2. The library will come out for 2.4. I have decided I will need to update to 2.4 as well. Mainly because everybody that I put a question on the Facebook page, and everybody replied back that they've already updated to 2.4. So they're going to make patches and send them to me, and I'm not going to be able to load them. And we're going to end up with a 2.3 library and a 2.4 library, and it's just going to be a mess. And I want to try to keep this somewhat simple and at least normal. And sanity is kind of an important thing to think about too. So the whole library that I'm going to release will be 2.4. If you make patches in 2.3, that's great. I can load them in 2.4. but you won't be able to play the final library if you use 2.3, 2.2, or 2.1 of Omnisphere. So this is my first library where I'm going to make the switch to 2.4. And mainly it's just because of all the user, I've opened the door for everybody to make patches for this. And so I have to make sure I can play them and I can compile them into a library everybody can use. So that is the game plan. Now, the violin demo library, this will become a $2 purchase as of midnight tonight when the OMG Volume 2 sale ends, and this is no longer included with OMG Volume 2. It will be its own separate library you can download because you didn't want to buy OMG Volume 2. You can buy it as a $2 demo. I just want to, the $2 is just because I want people that are connected to the website and are registered and legit and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it would be a free downloads, but $2 is enough that you're invested, and once PayPal takes out their percentage, it makes sense. Did you hear about a 2.4.1 update? I haven't heard anything. I'm not a beta tester with Omnisphere anymore, so I don't know what their plans are. So we will have to all wait until they release the update. I do know there are some issues for some people. There are lots of people that don't have issues. So if you are one having issues, hopefully you're talking to Spectrasonics and their tech support team to let them know what the issues are so that they can fix them. Okay? All right, so the demo library, I want to point out, has some names that are going to be different from the final version of the library. Some people reverted to 2.3 to make patches. Yeah, I was thinking of doing that. But when I put the question on Facebook, and 95% of the people have already updated to 2.4. And I just don't want to have a 2.4 library and a 2.3 library, and you have to choose between the two, and that just doesn't sound like very much fun. So we will all be in 2.4 together, okay? That's the plan. So these are the patches. Now, some things like complex motion, when I was making the final library, I went through, oh, we're on the wrong thing. So go to Viola here. Is this the full version? Yeah. Okay. So I just have really like one of, well, I'll explain the details in a minute, but so that became Flutterscape. So here's the full version of that library, of that sample. That sample in the demo is one sample. Here it is as 8 samples. Okay, so I named them. I decided for this we'll do scapes. the OMG cello or the Mega Magic cello had the names of mountain ranges, and I was looking at rivers. I really was, and stuff like that. And instead of immersive and Himalayas and Tetons and Denali like cello, we're going instead with. Where is it? Mega Magic Viola. We're going with Regalscape, Dreamscape, Flutterscape, and Pizzicatoscape. So now Regalscape is beautiful. So Flutterscape, this is using the fast motion samples. Here's the fast motion viola with Mega Magic processing. This library, I do cry when I play some of it. Okay, that is in there. The motion harmonics are just so beautiful. That's in there. Cello fast motion, and then there's some. What else did I add to this? I think a Mega Magic pads or Del Norte. One of those was added for filling it out, but it's all just plug and glue libraries layered and sampled. So it's not any outside source. Okay. Regalscape is incredible. This is the viola and the cello. There's a Mega Magic pad if you play the low notes. Just one sample. This is just single samples mapped across the keyboard for 8 samples. But you hear this like air that's coming from a pad from Mega Magic, from Del Norte. And then there's also a Mega Magic pad in there, as well as viola and cello. And we... There's also high because I have more than 8 samples, so I made a version where... Okay. Dreamscape is using the harmonics, motion slow from cello and viola, and other stuff. This is one that there's no... I made this and I made Pizzicatoscape after releasing the viola demo library, so there's no samples of this. Only I get to play with this. Haha. And then Pizzicatoscape is the pizzicato samples from soft hard viola, pizzicato from cello, and some other stuff I secretly magic sauce. And I did sample delays. So. Okay. And then there's a total of 15 different things, elements in the library. They will be presented this way. So here's, let's start with dry. So here's the vibrato viola. A little bit of ambience coming from right here. Oh wait, I did it on a per patch basis. I'm gonna go back and redo this, I think, so that it's not on a per patch basis, but it's just a single patch on the master bus, because right now there's nothing on the master bus. Really, I got these all compiled like yesterday. So you're seeing this kind of like for this is the first look of this library. But the dry will be short. Again, it's only 8 samples max. So you're not going to get the really realistic viola like you get from bigger sample libraries. I'm making things more that are fun to play. You know. Okay. Ambient has this room ambience added to the samples. So it sounds like you're in a concert hall performing. And then the Mega Magic is this really lovely reverb. Fun to play. Really, really fun. I didn't have time to do that for all these other ones. So the no vibrato, this is just the ambient version. Fast attack, you could put slow attacks on it. The crescendo, this is the non-looped Mega Magic version, so you can... fades off into the ethers. Okay? It's beautiful. Okay, down up stroke is just a down up, and then we've looped all these so that just a little bit of motion. It's not as much motion as the motion slow. Okay, pizzicato, we have both soft and hard. So this was the ambience, which really makes a big difference here. Okay, and then the hard hits are a little harder. Spiccato up. I can't wait to do some things where I have alternating between the up and the down. Because if you hear between the two. So alternating between those two and then playing should be really interesting. Marcato. Okay. Motion slow. This is where one note, she's just waxing back and forth. So there's lots of motion. It's different for each sample that's in the map. This is really what the library's goal was, to make these types of sounds. So the other stuff is kind of bonus. The pizzicatos and stuff. It's the motions and the harmonics that are really great. Motion fast. And I'll show you real quick. Let's change this to the dry so you can hear the difference. So if we start with one. What you have to do, so this is the Mega Magic, so you go up here to the dry C2 and then go to the next one and go to the D sharp dry, the G2 dry, this is motion fast C3. So we're replacing the samples. This is why naming is important for stuff like this, so that I can make sense of what's supposed to be assigned to what. This is C4, so we go dry C4. Dry G4 is right. Dry G4. And then dry C5. And now so let me do this. Let me save this since I took the time to make it. This is dry. Save. I'll add comments later. So here you can hear between the two. So you can hear the difference between, here's the Mega Magic with all the nice, all this ambience just builds up and becomes this wash in the sound. Dry version doesn't ever do that. So you can go over here. You can do a similar thing, right? But here's where it's really great and why the Mega Magic is so cool. This reverb that I've built by just adding reverb as an effect. If I play 3 or 4 chords, It just becomes this big wash. What's fun is the Mega Magic, because of the fact that it's in the samples baked, it never gets muddy. And you still have this huge reverb. So that's the really unique thing with the Mega Magic concept, is that the reverb is baked into the note, so that that reverb no longer is going to interact with all the other notes that you play. Whereas if you add it as an effect, it's going to react and make muddy whatever it is you're playing. So that's why I have those versions. So it's really cool. Motion harmonics is beautiful. Here's just one sample. Just listen to this. This is... just could play this for hours and hours. There's whispers, which are softer notes. Not much vibrato, but more than no vibrato. There's more motion. And again, we could go to the dry so you can hear the difference. Okay, and then the 4 sound design versions. Okay, the Dreamscape, Flutterscape, and then Pizzicatoscape. Okay, so that's the synopsis of the library, and instead of being $700, it's $49. So it will be out into this month. Yes, April 26th, I think, is 26th, 27th, 28th, somewhere in there. I hope to release this. As to your contributions, if you guys are going to make patches, let's go with that real quick. So if we go to the Viola demo library, okay, if you're going to make patches, let me look at my calendar really quick. You have until, where's calendar at? You have, I think the date of cutoff is the 21st. I'm kind of doing these on Saturdays for live stream purpose, so we can look at stuff together. Or maybe I think the 20th, so that I can put everything together to show you on the 21st what we've come up with, what everybody's contributed for the library. So that is your cutoff. Let's say the 20th. April 20th. Get to work. Let me see. Just looking at comments really quick. Make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah. So staying in 24th, the 20th is the date we're looking at. Oh, good. Glad you guys like the sounds of Mega Magic Viola. It's a nice set of sounds. I'm very happy with them myself. At first I wasn't sure. And by the way, the violin is even more beautiful than this. And this is quite beautiful. So violin will be the next library in the orchestral series. That's going to come probably July, August. Oh, I got something else I can give you a first look at. But you can't hear it. You can hear it, but you can't see it. So a lot of people have been asking for me to do something in the urban genre. I love the hip hop, dance, all that stuff. So I'm happy to let you know, probably for May, June, so we got really cool stuff coming up. So this will first be for Break Tweaker, and then I'll be working on bringing it out to Omnisphere and other things as well, probably. So Kick 2 is getting a lot of use for me right now to make sounds like this. So okay, so we are hitting urban hard this year. We're going to do some stuff in this kind of stuff. And it's so funny, my daughter, that's what she loves to listen to. The kids in school love to listen to all these guys, Tyler, the Creator, and everybody. And so when she hears this stuff, she's like so used to hearing, you know, the techno dance things. And she's like, Dad, you're playing the music I like. It's like, finally. So it's pretty funny. So we're working on that. So that will be coming out. I want to show something else that's really cool. And that is an ability. So I have this nice connection with a number of people at Roland. One of their main people that is in charge of their travels, their setups of trade shows and stuff. I used to be his music teacher when he was like 14, 15 years old in Seattle, Washington. And he's now way up there. And Igor is an A&R guy that works with everybody to keep everybody connected. He's a friend of mine for a very long time as well. And so he sent me, and we'll be covering this more. Check this out. An SE02. And I love this thing. It is really, really cool. I have some really interesting stuff planned for the not too distant future. One thing I didn't know about that I want to share is that you can set this up. You need to do a couple things. Audio MIDI setup. I'll show you my audio MIDI setup. You need to have an aggregate input, and all you do is you say plus, and you say create an aggregate device, and then you connect your audio card and the SCO2 to that, and then I have an output for live streams from using the Apollo and Soundflower, because Soundflower is what's helping me deliver the audio to the live stream feed from Logic. And by doing that, I'm able to set up this external input. It's an instrument right down here under Utility, External Instrument. And by doing that, you can set up so that you can have a MIDI destination. Like I could have this set up to also control the cross, which I have hooked up in the USB world. And I can have audio inputs coming, audio from the SCO2 digitally into Logic. So when you're hearing it, this is the digital input. I don't know if you've played with this much. Like I said, I'm going to cover this better in a video where I can have a camera on this and stuff. But it has a couple modes. One mode is just the play mode where you can flip through patches, right? It has this other mode that's so crazy called sequencer mode. And here, let's see. Let me get so I can see what's going on. I'm going to get the camera. Oh, there goes my stuff like that. So I'm going to shoot the camera down here. So check this out. So by flicking a little switch right here, I can flick it into what's called sequence mode. And by that, you can spin, and there's all these different sequence patch. And what this does is it plays a sequencer. And I can go to each one, and if I'm on note, I can go to parameter, and I can go to a certain one. So you can program in moves. There's all these. Let's get back to the patterns. If I go to where was I at? Where is it? So each one of these, it saves the patch as well as the sequence data, which is so brilliant. So I'm having a really fun time playing with this. So if you need to add some sort of an outside source to your studio, this is a cool option because it gives you both analog. It's actually a complete, like, copied as closely as they could get to the SE-1. The Studio Electronics guys, when they did it, they let Roland basically clone out an SE-1 into a circuit board. And so you have, it doesn't have, it's interesting, it doesn't have the balls to the wall of the Moog filter. There's a sub-octave that the filter can get on my Moog Voyager. But sometimes that's a huge problem to get rid of, actually, in the mix. And this cuts to a mix really well. So if I say I have drums, and if you're gonna loop, here's a cool trick. Oh, and the 909's playing too. Cool. So because OMG Drums works where the low note triggers the drums and stops, if you're going to have something repeated, just before the end, add one more note that stops it. So that way you can start up again when it gets back to the beginning of the cycle. So like if I have this guy here and I move it like right here. Computers, and I'm going to mute the TR-909 so I don't hear that right now. So mute. So I hit play. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. I need to make sure this is on 1. There. Yeah, okay, so I hit play. Wait, there. So it plays. When it gets to the end, it's note off. Don't even notice it, but it will allow it. 'Cause if I don't have this, if I get, well, it just did it. It will stop it. If you don't have this note, when you hit play, now it stops it. So by putting in a little ghost at the very last 16th note, it will stop it. You don't really notice it for the groove to restart. Also, if you're in the middle of a production, I had this happen when I was writing my demo songs. You start playing from, say, major 4, and you have all sequence stuff going on, and it's not playing. Well, and you don't have one of these in there. Say you're at major 9. Just hit a note. Just go to the Omnisphere track, hit C to start it up, and then it takes off. So there's a couple tricks like that that are really handy to know about to make sure that this works in a way that makes sense for how you're working. If you're repeating a loop and you're building up a track, so if we get this to go like that, I'm just gonna go through some sounds real quick. It's really handy for, it sounds great in the mix, even with the Omnisphere stuff. So it's very cool. I'm really glad they sent me one to play with. It was a nice Easter present. It showed up just before Easter. So what this is, the DA8. Oh, what's the question? This is the Roland SE-02 connected through a USB cable into Logic Pro. I'm using the aggregate ability, which is right here. You say create a new aggregate device, and this then shows up all the different devices you have in your studio, and then you click to enable whichever ones you want to use. So if I had additional USB audio devices, I have a virus from Access. It doesn't need to do this. It does the aggregate connection automatically inside of when you plug it in. It's one of the cool things. It's totally integrated just by plugging it in. The SE-02 is not. So you have to go in and turn on the aggregate as well as your audio card. And my audio is from the Universal Audio Apollo. So I don't need another one of these because I have this one working right here. So as you can see, I have the Apollo, which has 32 inputs and 28 outputs, and the SE-02. So when I go over here to the external input, 0 through 32 is the Apollo. So 33, 34 is where I will find the SE-02, so I can use it. It stays saved. I can now save a mix, and it's all there to call back from. What is the audio interface? Oh, it's the original Apollo from way in the day. It's not a new one. The new ones have different names. This is the silver-faced rack. It's a quad processor, but it's not. It's 8 in, 8 out. They have a 16 in, 16 out, I believe now. It has 8-at light pipes. I use an 8-at light pipe for a Focusrite mixer to connect for 8 additional analog channels, which I currently don't even have set up in my room, but I will be in the near future. But this is the original Apollo. They don't make this anymore. This is like 3 iterations ago. It's like maybe 4 or 5 years. Still works. Still works great. Doesn't even have Thunderbolt on it. I'm using Firewire 800 at the moment. So, do I like them better than the Duet? Well, for me, yes, because I needed more inputs and outputs. You kind of need to look at what your studio layout is going to be like in a couple years. Like sometimes people will end up buying little tiny desktop 2-in, 2-outs, and you know they start getting more into music, and pretty soon they needed more ins and outs. They didn't plan for that. So I love the Universal Apollo effects. They are superior to anything else I have, I think, plug-in wise, plus it's processed over there instead of on the computer. But the specs, that's up to you guys. It's depending on what your system is, what you need, what you're going to be doing. If it's just a small home studio, then maybe the Duet is fine. You know, you don't have to go all out if you're not going to be growing in that way. It's just if you need to have more inputs and outputs in the future, make sure you have like an 8-at light pipe in it, or some other option to expand it. Some of the things are now future expandable, so they're modular, you know, in concept. To see the different Apollos, yeah, search for Apollo on things. You guys are welcome. All right, so the last thing I was going to do was show using this in a music concept for doing a jam. So let's do this. Let's call up a jam to play with. Maybe I'll do a dance one instead of the techno. Although I do love. I like this. We're gonna play with this. But let's do this. Let's say that I don't want to sound like this groove, right? Like part of the idea behind OMG drums is to put sounds together that work. And it's the whole package, from the drum grooves to a bass to the keyboard parts. But in this case, I'm going to want to do things to it and I don't want to sound like everybody else. I want to like sequence my own bass part. I want to do my own drum programming. I don't want to play these drums, but somehow, how could I take this apart, right? So as you can see from the layout, it's got 3 sounds for the bass. Then it has this upper pad, and then there's 4 sounds for the drum groove. Okay? There's an effect sound, there's a hi-hat, snare, and kick. So if we wanted to, I have my MIDI transpose upset. So I, over here, not upset, but set up. So I can, let's go like this. I'm going to map these. Then I have to see which notes I've selected so that I can maybe shift them to be the notes that I want. So let's have the first note. Let's do this. So I'm going to transpose this track down an octave for the moment so I can play it. So I'm going to go down 12. Now, it's still set to latch by default. If I right click on each one of these, latch mode is on. I'm going to turn latch mode off. So by turning the latch mode off on these parts, it now will play. So when I play E, I get the kick. So when I play F, I get the snare. So I'm going to drag this down. Okay. Move this down to G. And if you click on the lower part, and then A is where we want to have the, and this sound takes a while because, okay. Now let's turn off the ARP for these parts, okay. By 1, 2, 3, 4, ARP off. And then last thing, I also want to go through each one of these and set them to trigger immediate. I don't want them to be quantized anymore. This way I can sequence anything I want timing-wise. So I've now broken the 4 drum sounds free of the groove model. It's no longer a drum machine. It's, right? So, is it lagging? Oh, my stream health is really bad right now. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can free some stuff up too. I'll delete some of these tracks. Oh, it might be Brake Tweaker is probably part of the problem. These guys all eat up so much CPU power. Let's see here. Turn Wi-Fi off. We'll give it a second. Hopefully there's the stutter goes away. I still see unhealthy on my stream. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize for the stutter. My computer doesn't show that it's working hard, per se. So, okay, now okay. Okay, sorry. I probably had a lot of stuff processor-wise happening in the computer, so it ate up additional cycles that were needed for the stream. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, so I have pulled apart these 4 drums, so they are now separated. And I have these guys here for the drum set, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to, well, because this is still timing sequence, I'm going to keep it triggering on 16th notes for now. But I'm going to turn off and make it trigger immediate. And this is part 8. I'm going to turn off the arpeggiator. Okay. So I can play what I want. Just by going to part 8 and turning off the ARP and going to the multi and setting it to trigger immediate, doing those 3 steps. And now you can play that synth part. Let me do this. I'm going to copy this setup so I can get back to this. Let me show that one more time, because a lot of you guys, this is kind of big steps, I know. So we're going to go to, this is the Sideline Groove. Reload. Since I copied it, I should be able to paste it back to the buffer. So the drums were set to play as a drum machine by dragging them down to little boxes for each one to be limited to a certain range on the keyboard, right? And then going through each one of these 4 and right-clicking to set it to trigger immediate, to turn off latch mode, and then the last step is to go up and turn off the arpeggiator. You can get the drum sounds to now be just like a drum kit. So you can have these 4 drum sounds, all 4. And if you want to do this stuff really quickly, if you hit live and turn on the latch button, you can see and turn off latch like this. If there's a quantize, it's set to yellow. So you can just go like this to turn it off. Okay. So I've now freed these 4 drum sounds up. So now I have to search on the keyboard to find where they're at. But once I find where they're at, they're each windowed to that note. And I could click and drag to adjust it to be exactly the notes that I want. Right? Now the lead sound, part 8. 2 steps. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to say trigger immediate. And then I need to go to the arpeggiator of part 8. So you click box for 8 to ARP and turn it off, because you see how it has a delay? There's a delay before it plays. If I turn off the arpeggiator, there's no longer a delay. So you can play it whenever you want. Why is trigger immediate on bass? The reason I'm keeping it on trigger of 16th notes is because there's 3 parts. And if you set it to trigger immediate, believe it or not, it won't always be in sync even with itself. It should be. Maybe I can do that because I'm going to be sequencing this. So maybe you can, okay, let's say you do that. So you can set each of the parts to trigger immediate instead of trigger 16th. So that way there's still a little bit of quantizing happening because the arpeggiator. And you could turn off the arpeggiator, but this drum part, that's part 5, it's quiet. If I turn off the arp, I have this drum sound every time I play it. But maybe this guy, maybe I like that. I mean, you can play with this experiment. The idea is to make it your own, right? So here I've turned off the ARP for part 7 and part 7 and 5 have it on. Part 6, I turned it off. Otherwise, it's just playing 16th notes the whole time. So, I guess I don't need to repaste it because I've rebuilt this. So I just, there it is. All right, so then I want to map this down so that it goes all the way to C for the bass because we're no longer triggering the drums. Okay. JX, it could be my daughter. I don't know. Actually, if you want to know the truth, she's playing Fortnite. So the PS4 could be part of the culprit, but we won't say anything. It's okay. So the other thing we could do to this, what if we wanted to do this? What if we wanted the bass part to cover the whole range? And we have this lead sound, right? And we want it to cover the whole range. Now we're getting kind of tricky in that on the multi, you no longer use stack mode. You turn stack mode off. And instead you go here and you set these up by MIDI channel. Set the first 3 to MIDI channel 1, because that's the drums. I want there to still be a drum kit with all of them. Then 5, 6, 7 will be MIDI channel 2 for the bass. And then part 8 will be MIDI channel 3. So I'm reassigning them as if they were separate modules. This is one instrument. These 3 bass sounds are another MIDI channel, so they're all on 2. And then all the drums are on 1. So this means I have to go over to my Logic setup and change this to 1, and then have 2 and 3. So channel 3 is the keyboard, 2. So now I have the whole keyboard range to play with this sound. And then my drums. That's a problem with the drums because they're all played on 1, which means they all trigger at once. This key window limiting ability, that's available only when stack mode is on. When it's off, you lose it. So it foiled my plans, which means I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see, let's see. We'll have to add it up as we go. So that means I need to do this. I need to go MIDI channel 1, 2. Each drum has to be its own MIDI channel for this case. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 5, 5, 5, 6. So 5, 5, 5, 6. So now I have, if I go to MIDI channel 1, see, I'm going to be faster. So we say, okay, that's my drum pattern for the kick. I want quantize loop. On the snare, if you notice right now, anywhere I play on the keyboard, it's the same pitch. But if I turn on tracking, so now I can choose. Maybe I want it to be more like an 80s kind of thumpy thing. And then on top of that, maybe I want to have a little, let's see. Oh. The hi-hats. Same thing. I'm going to go to the hi-hats and I want to change pitch on them. So I turn on key tracking. This C is the original pitch, but I can play anywhere across the keyboard with this. So let's go. And then the little chirpy sound. And I want to put a radio delay on it. So let's go here, delay. Oh, it's. Well, let's say that's what I want to do for fun, right? Okay. So it's no longer the techno groove that we started with. It's quite different, right? And because I've pulled it out from the arpeggiators controlling it to have that certain vibe, it's a whole different vibe. I'm going to... So I have dissected it to where I could play anything I want. I could make any kind of chord progression I wanted. I could make it into an EDM track or anything. It's now been pulled apart so that while I'm using those sounds. Oh, here, let's sequence something. 2, 3. Right? So I need to make sure my mod wheel goes back to down at the beginning. 1, 2. I'm going to do a mod wheel move. Okay? And quantize this. So yes, I am making multiple instances, multiple tracks, because I'm using MIDI channels. You have to watch this. This is a tutorial that I think a lot of you might want to watch a time or two. I have taken it out of stack mode. So it's no longer stack mode. Means ignore the MIDI channels. These MIDI channels that were set 1 through 8, when you hit stack mode, it ignores them and it just stacks all 8 parts to be able to be available on the keyboard at once without you having to set anything up. If you turn that off, then you can set everything to MIDI channel 1, or you can separate them out. And I've separated the kick to its own MIDI channel. The snare is on 2. The hi-hat sound is on 3. That special effects sound is on 4. The bass sound is still 3 sounds. These 3 bass sounds. So I've set those to all be in MIDI channel 5, 5, and 5. And then the last synth sound is set to MIDI channel 6. Because that just makes the natural sequence of what I have here. And then in your sequencer, what you need to do, normally when you load up a new instrument inside of Logic, and it's blank like this MIDI channel setting is set to all. And different sequencers do it in different ways. But here all you do is you set it to 1 for the first one. And then it just so happens if you hold down Control and hit Return, that's this default key command to make new tracks. And if you want to do it the old-fashioned navigation way, then you would go up here to Track, Other, New Track with Next MIDI Channel. And it shows you the key command right here to do it. And by doing that, each time I do that, it makes a new MIDI channel added to it. So it's changing this MIDI channel right here to be 5, 6, 7, 8. So normally, like I said, it's set to all, which is like stack mode. But you can change it just like in Omnisphere to not be stack mode. And by doing that, I now have these parts that can play. Right? So I'm using this multi. It's the same sounds. If I go up here and copy all this work, if I go here and I reload the side grooves so you can see what changes. The defaults, you might not notice this, but when you load up any of these multis, the MIDI channel is 1 through 8 on all of them. But because stack mode is turned on, it's ignoring that. If you turn stack mode off, boom, all these parts are automatically set up to listen to MIDI channel 1 through 8 because stack mode has been turned off. So this ability of stack is very smart on Spectrasonic's part to put this in, because now I don't have to go through and set this up, and I can do this limited key windowing and all these other cool tricks that stack mode have available, so I can okay, so that's what it sounds like when you call this up. But as a composer, as a producer working on a new record, and I need some new tracks for my album project, I can hit a couple settings, pull the drums out, put the bass on its own MIDI channel, put the keyboard on its own MIDI channel, and boom, whole different vibe. So that's the power of this library and how it can transform really quickly into all sorts of different types of use. It's very flexible. If you don't like a kick drum or like the snare drum I didn't like, so I went in and I transposed so I could find the pitch that I wanted it to be. That's on MIDI channel 2. And then I didn't want it to be super long envelope, so I just, and I could go over here and look, there's a compressor, it's hitting really hard. I can have it hit a little softer, be a little louder. Now, if we're doing really 80s, we go to reverb and have some reverb on the snare. And the hi-hats, I wish they were a little bit brighter. So go to the hi-hat track, which is part 3. And that kick just isn't cutting it. It's too flabby. So there's a couple options. I could crank up the compressor. Oh. I have to put in at the very end of this bass part on channel 5, I put in, if we were to change this view, if we hit A for automation, and we change this to be region, I can now look at any controllers that are inside of this region, and it just so happens that it's modulation. So I can see that I have modulation here, and then nothing before that. So let's take this very first one and have it be 0. There. Now when I hit play, my bass doesn't accidentally, if I stopped my sequencer right here, and I go back to the beginning of the song, because there was no modulation information, it will sound freaked out, right? If that's the case, that's how you can fix and get rid of that. You can change the view of any automation lane from, instead of being track, and if you say track, then you have these parameters, and it doesn't really make sense. But if you click again, you can say region, and now it's based on what is in a region, and now it will show you stuff that was in there, and there's modulation wheel in there, and you can see that I put in a little setting there, and I could like add one here if I wanted to have it do a step. Okay. And on this one, last one, I want it to be a bigger sweep, and I want to change the curvature a little bit to be more like that. Okay, so I still love the power of Logic for this kind of stuff. The other sequencers don't make sense to me, but you know, I'm trying. I'm going to actually be working more inside of Live, as well as other sequencers that I have. But I just want to show you that idea of pulling something out and these 8 lanes of sounds that each one of these libraries provide. Let's copy this again. Actually, let me hit this. I'm going to hit Command S. This is I make a live stream each week preset Logic file. So it saved that demo song, so I can spit that out as a demo song to put up onto SoundCloud, because it is cool. It's cool to show by just changing it to where you can play your own data in. And again, the kick drum, we were looking at the kick drum. If that kick drum's not still right, I could go over here to the sample page and go over here, say OMG Volume 2, and like a harder hit beat break bump. And maybe this, because they are separate patches, they have their separate effects. So you can go to the effect page here. Here's a cool trick. So we're going to make this into true 80s, since it kind of has an 80 vibe. Let's go reverb, really strong. No pre-delay. Actually, that's too nice. Easy verb. Okay. And then we could do a couple things. We could put the gate on it. Dynamics. Isn't there a gate? Yeah, gate expander. So we could say solo. That should be gated. Oh, there it is. I need a smoothing. Let's see how this sounds in the mix. I would look at another option would be to do this, where instead of a gate, have this triggered with an envelope, like envelope 4, and then go over here to envelope 4 and say like just ADS. Oh, come back here. We could use just simple spike and then modify that really quick, like this polyphonic up, and then add another one, clamps it straight down really fast. We could even add one. That's what I want. That's far better. So better than the effect that it has in the side. So yes, it's crazy the flexibility that those envelopes give you for controlling parameters in ways you wouldn't have expected, right? Oh, don't too much to reverb. Okay, I won't kill it. So let's do this. Part 1. Let's see, show the modulation so we can play this. Bring down the strength. There. Thanks to my amazing 64 audio in-ear monitors, it's really clear and easy to hear that I want the kick to be like that. So you do a little bit of ambience in there. But it still has that driving attack because too much reverb softened up the attack. So save that. Okay. So that was action-packed. Lots of fun. Cool. Glad you guys like it better. Stream health is not good. I am sorry for the stream health not being good. I don't know why it's going up and down, but we are wrapping up. Is there any questions? Covered a lot here. So if there's any questions, pop them up at this moment. I could make a school to teach people, but I at the moment I'm doing, because I'm just me and that requires a lot of development and setup. Yeah, next week, well, there's not that much added to 2.4, but I will cover the update. We'll look at it. I'll update this week probably, so we can. There's a few additional modulation sources, which actually might be very useful for the strings because it's 3 and 4 possible stepping modulation sources. So you could have strings where things are changed a little bit in exact amounts every time. That's in theory. I haven't worked with it before. So yeah, we'll look at that next week. We will maybe have the question is Waverazor library question mark. Good question. I don't know. We'll see. Kind of my rule of thumb is something needs to be out for a while and have a customer base like this, because I sell to like that much of the customer base. How can we study more in depth with you? You know, good question. Maybe I'll do workshops or something at some point. I mean, there's lots of possibilities in the future on sharing knowledge of how to do things, and there's a concept that I have on how to look at these instruments and how to approach them. But the main tricks is just learning your tools, watch a whole bunch, spend a day watching YouTube videos on Logic tips, or whatever your sequencer of choice is. Spend a day going through YouTube and watching nothing but tip videos for the sequencer you use. And I guarantee you, you will learn a whole bunch of tricks you hadn't thought about. You know, there's so much information on YouTube. It is not even funny waiting for free to download, and like I'm in the process of getting a new camera, and I'm on back order. Well, not back order, but the waiting list for the new Sony full frame digital it's not even SLR, it's mirrorless. It's killing the digital SLR. So I've been watching Sony camera videos for the last week like crazy. So, you know, we're all oh, by the way, check this out. I made a painting last night. Tell me what you think. Let's see if you can see that. Isn't that kind of cool? Oh, wait. I need to hold it more upright and up. I like the brush strokes. Oh, wait. I'm not technically there yet, but I love painting, so I want to learn more about that as an art form. It's very fun. Do a workshop in Europe. I would love to. I would love to go about and do workshops and stuff. And you know, we can look at how you would approach for different sequencers, certain things, because patching the black holes. I like that name. Thanks, JX. All right. Any other questions? I like the idea of doing some workshops, so we'll figure out how to do that. Okay, let's do our shout outs, and then I'm out of here. Shout out from Portland, Oregon, where it's rainy. Oh, good. Yes. Learning a lot from playing with the viola sample patch making. Good. There's 100 and I think it said 200 videos now that I have on YouTube. So if you want, there is lots of knowledge in the last almost 10 years of videos. I've been doing this for 9 years now. So there's a lot of videos on YouTube I have produced that are tip and trick videos. So go back and watch those. Even tips for Omnisphere 1. I mean, Omnisphere 2 has added some capabilities, but not really a whole bunch of new features per se. It's not like it's revamped and everything is different in different locations. So tips for Omnisphere 1 work with Omnisphere 2. You just can see the controllers and stuff easier, stuff like that. Thank you, Philip. Saturday night with Skippy, highlight of my week. Yeah, you made my day, buddy. Thank you. From Virginia, Arizona. Wish you could do the workshops on the internet. We'll look at doing that. I mean, that's not impossible. It's very possible to do that. Raining in North Carolina too. Copenhagen, Denmark, Spain. Ah, cool. Denmark, Holland, Amsterdam. By the way, I think in June, the plan now is I'm going to come to Europe in June, I believe, with my daughter for a little vacation time. So we'll be there. I might let you know if there's a place to meet up for a beer or something like that with some of you. That'd be really fun. We'll see. West Texas, Toronto, Wales, UK. Would love some experimental libraries, electronic experimental libraries. That's really not my forte. I'll be honest. I'm not an experimental electronic guy. I'm more mainstream. I kind of do what I know I can do really well. I can get experimental. It's just, we'll see. Thanks for putting that out there. I'll think about that. Intransigent man. Thailand. Okay, you guys are awesome. Glad to be here. Glad to make this a weekly thing. It's really fun. Be well. Study up. Like I said, YouTube is this completely huge. There's lots of people trying to put their brains on YouTube. And so if you join my Facebook Plugin Guru page, I'll post links to a handful of the guys that I follow and watch from time to time that keep sharing knowledge. And in fact, there's one up right now from one of the guys that did a, they took a track and 4 different producers remixed it. Lots of information about how people are using, mostly those guys use Ableton Live for the future bass and all the stuff that they're doing. To each their own. It's all, know your tools. Whatever you're using, make sure you know how to use it, and you'll do more with it. And you'll be more, you'll just be more confident. You know, if you know how to do stuff, then there's not this stop and searching in an owner's manual thing, because you know what you can do and you can go do it. And so their confidence factor goes up big time if you know your tools. So spend some time watching other people work with the same sequencer you use will just open up all sorts of ideas. Okay? Can't hurt, right? So, thank you. We will talk to you next week. Be well. Peace.